Hello there, a very good evening and welcome to Primetime News on TV1. We're coming to you live and direct from Studio R here at Babe Street in Colombo. I'm Charlene Benedict for the Newsfirst team, and with me is my co-anchor Zenith Musafa. Good evening, Zenith.
Good evening, Charlene, and good evening to all of our viewers. We have the latest updates lined up for you from the local and international arena, but let's take a look at your headlines for tonight.
CID and STF officers raid Rajitha Senaratne's house in Colombo. Rajitha's motion to recall arrest warrant withdrawn before taken up for consideration. President engages in a sudden inspection at the Department of Motor Traffic. JVP leader Andrew Kumar Dissanayake requests Speaker for a debate on the President's manifesto. Why is the draft bill to limit election spending delayed?
Former Minister Dr. Rajitha Senaratne's residence in Colombo was subjected to a special search this afternoon. This is the manner in which Police Special Task Force and the Criminal Investigations Department left the minister's residence in Colombo following the completion of the search.
Meanwhile, former Minister Dr. Rajitha Senaratne filed a motion at the Colombo Magistrates Court requesting for the withdrawal of the warrant issued for his arrest. The former minister's attorneys requested that the motion be taken up for consideration today. However, the attorneys representing the former minister had requested the Judicial Registrar not to call for the motion before court this evening. Accordingly, the motion was not taken up for consideration. The two drivers said to be involved in the white van incident who spoke at the media briefing are due to be produced in court tomorrow.
Now, these were the views expressed in the political sphere with regard to issuing a warrant to arrest former Minister Dr. Rajitha Senaratne and the failure to arrest him.
Two individuals approached one of our conveners and confessed to him about the information on white van incidents. And that's when this conveyor conveyed this information to former Minister Rajitha Senaratne. As a politician, he brought this information to light for the common good of the society.
Making various statements before the public instead of trying to prove their innocence before an independent judiciary, in my view, is another media circus. Discussing matters related to the Attorney General's department itself is proof of their weak stance. We would like to remind them of the time that they called the shots from the temple trees.
If legal action is instituted against all politicians alike, against false statements that they make at media briefings and political stages, then legal action will have to be taken against almost every politician in the country. If this is the case, legal action should also be taken against Vimal Veeravansa, Udaya Gammanpilla and Mahinda Rajapaksa, who merely glanced at the MCC compact and made statements about it during the run-up to the presidential election.
The government does not chase after these politicians. That is what the law is in place for. There's the police, the CID and the judiciary is in place. They will carry out their duties. Where we go wrong is when the politicians attempt to capture thieves. It's okay for politicians to speak about it. I don't think that this government needs to do this.
Former Minister Rajitha Senaratne went to court again and presented facts on why he cannot be arrested. Then the court said that they will look into the matter and make a decision by the 30th. What happens after that? The CID again goes to another magistrate. What has happened is that the police and the CID are completely politicized. This is political revenge. There is no other word for this.
We thank the authorities that nabbed the person who stole a firearm within just 2 hours. They will also find where Rajitha is. They must find him.
Honestly speaking, we are amazed by the CID. If they can't find a person like Rajat Sena Ratna, I think it would be best if they search the residence of the Prime Minister. If a person like him can evade the law, I feel as if this government is letting this go. There is politics involved in the fact that some files at the AG's department are concealed and locked away, while other cases are pulled out and investigated at record speed. That is very clear.
The Surakimu Sri Lanka organisation convened a media briefing in Ragama today. The following views were expressed during the media briefing.
මම සරත් ෆොන්සේකාගේ මාධ්‍ය ලේකම්වර හැටියෙන් ඉන්නකොට මම ඔය ජෙනරාල් ඇත්තටම ලසන්ත වික්‍රමතුංගව ඝාතනය කරේ කවුද?
When I served as a media secretary of Sarath Fonseca, I asked him, General, who murdered Lasantha Vikramatunga? He then laughed in an unusual manner and said, this is what finally happens when anyone goes beyond their limit. The same thing will happen to you as well. When Sarath Fonseca was attacked by a suicide bomber, he was sent to Singapore for treatment. We even have the bill for all expenses incurred in Singapore. While Sarath Fonseca served as the army commander, one of his relatives' wedding took place at the army headquarters. They brought in their 48 air conditioners for the outdoor wedding. Within an hour, all 48 machines were burnt. The cost was borne by the army headquarters. Are these not national crimes?
ගෙවි හමුදා මූලස්ථානය. එතකොට මේවා ජාතික අපරාධ නෙමේද?
මෑත කාලයේ සිට අපි දැක්කා ස්වාමීන් වහන්සේ.
We witnessed many religious figures participating in the political arena in the recent past. We have a responsible president and prime minister. We have a responsible police as well. Our request is for all religious figures to detach themselves from the president, the prime minister, opposition leader and all political leaders. We also request all politicians not to allow Buddhist monks to get involved in politics and to refrain from giving them nominations.
ස්වාමීන් වහන්සේලා දේශපාලනට හවුල් කරගන්න එපා, නාම යෝජනා දෙන්න එපා.
Now, after many years, Sri Lankans witnessed a rare annular solar eclipse today.
An annular solar eclipse occurs when the moon covers the sun's center, leaving the sun's visible outer edges to form a ring of fire or annulus around the moon. The annular eclipse was visible for 3 hours and 15 minutes from 8:10 a.m. to 11:25 a.m. in the northern parts of the country. The height of the eclipse was seen at 9:36 a.m. This is how the solar eclipse was visible in many parts of the island.
The annular solar eclipse is that the solar disk, the disk of the sun, is covered by the disk of the moon, but it is not enough to cover the entire sun. So therefore, some of the ring, like a part of a sun, is just remaining without covering by the moon's disk. So this is called annular solar eclipse.
This is the first time that Sri Lankans were able to witness an annular eclipse after the 15th of January 2010. The Arthur C. Clarke Foundation stated that a similar annular eclipse would be visible from Sri Lanka on the 21st of May 2031. This eclipse would be clearly visible from Jaffna. Meanwhile, this is how the solar eclipse that occurred today was seen from Singapore, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia and a number of other countries across the world.
Today is the 26th of December. It's a day that we Sri Lankans will never forget. It's a day where millions of people, both in Sri Lanka and other Asian countries, were affected, and it's a day that we as a nation will continue to grieve. Today marks the 15th anniversary of the deadly tsunami wave that left a trail of destruction that shocked the entire world.
It was a Sunday, the day after Christmas, also known as Boxing Day. Many people who celebrated Christmas the previous day were relaxed at the start of the day. The Newsfirst staff were preparing for another day at the newsroom as usual. The first few calls received by the newsroom were on reports of the earth shaking in certain parts of the island. After a while, we received reports that the seawater along the eastern, western as well as southern coasts were fast being pulled back into the sea. We were not too familiar with the word tsunami at the time. We also did not have a proper understanding of the signs associated with a tsunami. We acted swiftly and deployed our reporters to the location from which the reports came in from. We then received another call from a person who claimed that the sea is overflowing in Trincomalee. While we did not have much knowledge on the horrors to come, witnessing the signs of an imminent disaster, we immediately began to caution and inform the general public of this possible threat via our breaking news and live broadcast.
Watching the joint broadcast live on Channel 1 MTV, Shakti TV and Srishti TV in the wake of the national disaster.
The first tsunami wave hit the shores of Sri Lanka at about 9:26 a.m. at a speed of 800 kilometers per hour. Sri Lanka, which is located 1,700 kilometers from the epicenter of the quake, was hit by the wave 2 hours after the earthquake. The ruthless tsunami wave claimed the lives of 227,898 people in 14 Asian countries. The tsunami wave devastated the coastal villages in the north, south, east and west of the island. While the exact death toll of the disaster in Sri Lanka is not certain, the number exceeds 35,000. Understanding the gravity of the disaster and taking a step further from simply reporting on the incident, we united as the Capital Maharaja Organisation Limited to respond to this emergency. While keeping the general public updated on the latest details of the disaster, we also launched a program to provide aid to the millions affected by the tsunami wave. The documents of the news rundown on that tragic day 15 years ago brought back memories to Team News First. People from all walks of life in Sri Lanka and abroad rallied around the Sahana Yatra program to provide much needed aid to our fellow brothers and sisters who had lost their loved ones and everything that they hold dear. The general public, together with our team, worked day and night to ensure that the Sahana Yatra reached the victims as fast as possible. This disaster brought together all people of the country, devoid of any religious, racial or class differences. The clothes and food items collected in the south were distributed among the people in the north, personifying the true spirit of brotherhood among all Sri Lankans. The same aid items collected from the north were sent to the south to help their fellow brothers and sisters in their hour of need. Moving beyond the Sahana Yatra program, we invited all Sri Lankans to rise up once again as a nation to face the challenges left behind by this deadly wave. All people across Sri Lanka united as one, and we were able to rise from the ashes of destruction within a short period of time. When this disaster hit, certain leaders of our country were overseas. Given the severity of the damages caused by the tsunami wave, it did not seem like our leaders had any proper idea on how to respond to it. However, the people themselves organized themselves, and through their donations and support to the Sahana Yatra program, we were able to stand on our feet again as a country. We continue to call to our memory the lives taken away by this ruthless tsunami wave, with the hope that such a disaster will never plague our country again. This series of events proved that no matter the political divisions in the country, together we can even overcome a devastating tsunami wave. 15 years after the tsunami, these lessons learned still remain timely and relevant to all of us. Sri Lanka.
Several events were organized across the country today in memory of the lives lost in the tsunami disaster.
Several events were organized across the island in memory of the victims who lost their lives and the victims who were injured. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa also joined the events. The President urged that taking precautionary measures based on past experiences are very important in order to avoid such disasters in the future. Meanwhile, the main commemorative event to remember the victims was organized at the Peralia Tsunami Memorial, where the world's deadliest train accident took place. The train began its journey from the Maradana station towards Mathura at 6:45 a.m. and stopped at Peralia in memory of the victims. Engine driver Vanigaratna Karunatilaka, who experienced the tsunami 15 years ago, is now retired. I will never forget this incident. I still remember how it felt at the time. We never knew what this was. If we did, we'd have saved more lives. But unfortunately we didn't. I pray that Sri Lanka will never witness a disaster of this nature again. Another ceremony was organized at the mass grave in Akmimana, where thousands of victims were buried. A ceremony was organized to invoke blessings for the victims of the 2004 tsunami at the Disaster Management Center. Two minutes of silence was observed from 9:25 to 9:27 this morning in memory of the lives lost in the tragic tsunami disaster 15 years ago.
Do you remember Baby 81, who made headlines after he was caught in the tsunami disaster? The Newsfirst team today visited him 15 years after this life-changing experience.
The infant, known as Baby 81, was rescued from the tsunami disaster in the Kalmune coastal region. At the time the infant was found, he was just 2 months old. The baby made headlines internationally when 7 mothers who had lost their children from the tsunami disaster claimed the child to be theirs. The infant was handed over to his biological parents after the Gene Tech Institute conducted a DNA test of the child. The infant, who was named Jayarasha Abhilash, is now a 15-year-old teenager who lives in Kaludavale, Batiklo. Abhilash, who is a student of the Batiklo Kaludavale College, is studying to face the GCE ordinary level examination next year. Now I understand the efforts put in by my mother and father to rescue me. I stand before them as a good child. I am sitting the ordinary level examination next year. My expectation is to get good results. Although this child cannot remember the events that unfolded on the day the disastrous tsunami wave struck the island, on every 26th of December, he commemorates the victims who lost their lives, along with his mother and father, opposite a memorial that he has built at his residence.
Although it has been 15 years since the tsunami disaster, victims have not yet received the houses that were constructed for them. Now, this is a report on 500 houses that was constructed in Norochole Akarepattu in Ampara that have not yet been handed over to the victims of the disaster.
On the 2nd of May 2006, the then Minister Ferial Ashraf signed the agreement for the construction of these houses. 552 million rupees was received as aid from Saudi Arabia for the construction of 500 houses. This project was completed in 2010. However, the Jatika Helurume filed action against the distribution of these houses at the Supreme Court.
In the name of tsunami, money was robbed. Money was collected all over. But what happened? The Saudi government gave a township to the Sri Lankan government. They initially gave 500 houses. Everything was done and given to this government. The Ferial Ashraf, who took the most initiative to do this, was not allowed to distribute this by our own people. What happened today? Where are those houses? Were given to anybody? You eat or allow somebody to eat. But what did you do? Prevented this being given. What happened?
We're now crossing over for a short commercial break. Stay tuned for more news. Welcome back to the news. According to a report compiled by JB Securities, Sri Lanka's vehicle registrations fell to 24,472 units in November 2019, the lowest since June 2013.
This is a reduction of 21.7% when compared with the total vehicle registrations in November last year. Accordingly, motor car registrations last month declined by 19% compared to October this year. Motorcycle registrations also fell by 15.4% to 18,540 units last month compared to October this year. CEO of JB Securities, Murtaza Jafarji, speaking to Newsfirst, said the recently concluded presidential election is considered as the main reason for the slowdown in vehicle registrations.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa today engaged in an inspection tour of the Department of Motor Traffic branch in Verahara this evening.
A large number of customers were present at the time President Gotabaya Rajapaksa arrived without prior notice. The President instructed the department officials to create a system where drivers' licenses will be issued to customers without any delay. The President had also requested for a report on this within a period of 1 month. Leader of the Janata Vimukti Peramuna, Anura Kumara Disanayaka, spoke about the Millennium Challenge Compact at a media briefing in Colombo today.
You might remember that the United States said if this agreement is not signed before the 31st of this month, they will withdraw themselves from all activities on the agreement. But now the United States are ready to provide the current administration time to examine and analyze this agreement. The President says that he is ready to examine this agreement. This clearly shows that the United States and the current administration in Sri Lanka are working with a good understanding on the future of this agreement. This showed that there is preparation to provide the government with the time they require to sign this agreement after the general election.
Anura Kumara Disanayaka also spoke of the program of the current government.
Today, Gotabaya Rajapaksa's statements have made it clear that this government robbed the people of their opinion against the sale of national resources to foreign companies. Statements like the sale of the Hambantota port to China was right. When the government was taken over, they said that they will create a government where the people will be able to purchase their food at a reasonable price. Instead, what has happened is the government is working towards fulfilling the aspirations of a few rice smugglers. We are receiving reports that there is an attempt to prorogue Parliament again on the 3rd of January. We must state that we need a debate in Parliament regarding the manifesto of the President. We hope to request the Speaker for a debate on this manifesto.
The interim report of PAFRL on the 2019 presidential election was released today.
According to the report, the recently concluded presidential election was the least violent when compared with the 2010 and 2015 presidential elections. The report further added the misuse of state power and public property was also comparatively low. However, PAFRL today pointed out several facts that must be looked into.
A draft bill to limit election expenditure was approved by the cabinet of the former government and the Attorney General's department. It now only requires cabinet and parliamentary approval to be passed. This bill must be enforced with immediate effect. Members of the National Election Commission had expressed various views during a number of occasions. So if the Commission is to maintain its respect, all members of the Commission must be a part of the decision-making process. We all witnessed a record number of contestants in the recently concluded presidential election. We must enforce laws to limit the number of contestants in the future, and we have submitted several proposals in this regard. We propose to increase the deposit amount. The political party contesting at the presidential election should have a public base. Permission should only be granted for political parties to contest.
A supplementary textbook on sexual education issued to students of the 7th grade has been subject to much controversy.
Recently, a group of venerable Theros pointed out that the Ministry of Education has taken steps to issue books that corrupt the minds of children. This is a book that completely corrupts the minds of children. Therefore, we ask the Ministry of Education to ban this book immediately. Not only that, disciplinary action must be taken against all those who were involved in issuing this book. When we inquired on the matter from the Commissioner General of Education Publications Department, Jayantha Wickramanayake, he said that the book was compiled by the Ministry of Health. He added that the book was given to the Ministry of Education for distribution as it was approved by the Sectoral Oversight Committee on Education in Parliament. About 300,000 books were distributed among schools in November to be handed over to students. The Commissioner General of Education Publications Department said that, however, the distribution of the books was halted as per an instruction received by then Minister of Education Akila Viraj Karyavasam. I stopped the distribution of this book as they try to use this on the political stage during the run-up to the election. My opinion is that students from various schools are falling victim to sexual abuse as they do not have a proper understanding of the subject. If children are given proper sexual education, they can be protected from a lot of harm. If this continues, we won't be able to even teach the lesson of reproductive systems under the health science. This is a book compiled by medical professionals at the Ministry of Health. This was done after broad discussion on these issues arose in the country in the past. It is wrong that this book was recalled after it was distributed among the schools. If there is a damage caused by the content of the book, you must direct it to a child psychologist for their opinion.
A recent energy sector assessment published by the Asian Development Bank said electricity supply costs in Sri Lanka were much higher than Bangladesh, Indonesia, Nepal, Oman and Thailand.
The report said the majority of street lighting equipment were of poor quality and badly maintained, resulting in very high energy wastage. In 2016, the Ceylon Electricity Board had incurred 2,954 million rupees of public street lighting. The CEB, which allows public street lighting as free energy, had distributed this cost across all customers. However, the report added, whether the costs incurred brings about the expected services is questionable, owing to the shortcomings stated, most of which remain unresolved. The report further revealed CEB annual reports do not indicate subsidies received from the government to bridge the revenue shortfall. The report added, while the generation requirements currently grow at rates around 4% annually, no major power plant has entered construction since the construction of the Lakvijaya power plant. The ADB also warned, with no power plants of significant capacity entering the construction phase for 11 years from 2007 to 2018, Sri Lanka will face serious generation capacity deficits and the existing power plants will continue to operate on diesel fuel for several years to come. The estimated incremental cost of diesel fuel against LNG would be about $150 million annually by next year. The world consumes 65% more coal today than it did in the year 2000. The International Energy Agency expects global coal demand to decline in 2019 but remain broadly stable over the next 5 years. The future of coal will be largely decided in Asia, whose share in global coal power generation has risen from just over 20% in 1990 to almost 80% this year. Addressing emissions from Asia's coal use is critical for the success of any global efforts to tackle climate change.
Kamal Ratwatta assumed duties as the new chairman of the Sri Lanka Bureau of Foreign Employment today.
Kamal Ratwatta assumed duties this morning following multi-religious observances.
Kamal Ratwatta was the former Basnayaka Nilame of the Sama Mahadevalaya in the Sabaragamuwa province. We know him as an experienced and socialized person. I do not know much about the Sri Lanka Bureau of Foreign Employment. However, I promise to comprehensively analyze this institution and its processes within a month. I will not do any review of the institution.
පසුවිපරමක් කරන්නේ මම ඉදිරියේදී කරන්න යන විස්තර විතරක් ඔබතුමන්ලාට මහ ජනතාව දැනුවත් කරන්න ඒ විස්තර